We go. This is PitchDeck Asia. My name is Graham Brown. This is PitchDeck Angels, which is the first in a new series of roundtable conversations with active angel investors here in Southeast Asia. I'm joined by two people which I've known for a long time, and I have to say I've admired their work. So Rina Neoh and Stephen Liew, welcome. It's good to have you here. Your names, I think, are well known in the industry. Let's put a little bit of a backstory to this. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how all this came about in the first place, Fukuoka. So,
Yes.
Rina, I've known you the longest. I've known you for quite a few years now. I mean, 2 or 3 years probably.
Yes.
I interviewed you for an old podcast before I
Yes.
started Asia Tech podcast. I'm not sure how that sort of introduction came about, but I think you were a name in the industry at the time. And we had a chat then did an interview for Asia Tech podcast. Then obviously I moved to Singapore as well. Steve and I had known for a couple of years now.
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about Fukuoka, because this is where this all came about. Fukuoka is a city in Japan, for those that don't know. You're both from, you're from Singapore
I'm
originally.
from
You're from
Singapore,
originally from
yeah.
Penang in Malaysia,
Yes.
right? You live in Singapore. How did Fukuoka come about, and also the introduction? So who's going to tell the story?
So maybe I can start first. So we've known each other, I think, through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then we had a first sort of interview. And I think I told you that I'm going to Fukuoka. And I am actually quite famous for slotting a few meetings in my holidays.
It wasn't a holiday, though, was it?
I try to make it a holiday, but
Right.
my husband always says, "Why do you have to work?" So I said, "No, we're going to visit this interesting place, and we're going to meet a Singaporean, so maybe he can bring us to some good food."
Yeah.
So you mentioned Stephen staying in Fukuoka, and he's also an angel investor. So we make plans,
Why not?
and we met at Startup Fukuoka
Startup Cafe.
Startup
Yeah.
Cafe, and it was really awesome. So
Wasn't it your honeymoon?
sort
Kind of a honeymoon.
it's like a delayed
Really?
honeymoon.
Delayed
Yes,
I didn't know that.
It wasn't. She was like having business meetings.
yes,
Like,
yes. But it was really
It's
nice.
in your
that
DNA,
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think my wife will kill me if I do that.
You met at, well, I'd known you before
Yep.
Fukuoka.
We met in Tokyo.
Yeah, met in Tokyo.
Yep.
You were with your wife in Tokyo at the time. And you had just sort of landed in Fukuoka, I think, at the time, hadn't you? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was only half a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the genesis of Fukuoka, you moved there. What was the decision? Why did you move to Fukuoka in the first place? It's not the most obvious place for an angel investor to go, especially from Singapore. What's the story there?
Well, a couple of reasons. I mean, the personal reason was we were looking for something different to our life. We want to do something challenging. And so we decided to learn the Japanese language. Then it was a question of which city to go to. And because we've been doing a little bit of angel investing, we kind of say, hey, let's go to a place that has a lot of startups. And when we did our research online, we saw a lot of news from City Hall, from JETRO, from Japanese government talking about Fukuoka. And that's where we end. That's where we end up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a challenge, and we're actually sitting in Stephen's apartment here. I mean, if you're watching the video version, I don't know if you can see behind Rina's head. There's like a Doraemon cuddly toy.
Yes.
You're a bit of a fan of. You're a bit of a Japan otaku, aren't you?
I'm definitely otaku, crazy about the mangas and the anime. It's one of the best way to learn Japanese language.
Right.
Just to watch the anime and speak like a 3-year-old.
Right. So like going to Japan for you is like a coming home in a way. So.
Kind of.
Right.
Kind of.
But you're back. You're both here in Singapore now. Let's talk a little bit about what you do. I mean, obviously, you consider yourself angel investors, right? And there's a lot of people who are angel investors, quote unquote, out there as well. But you do this regularly. This is what you do on a day-to-day basis. So let's talk about that. Maybe you can talk about some of the investments that you've made, on what you've learned in the process. Because I think any angel investor should be able to talk openly about what they do and who they've invested in and what kind of vertical sectors they're in and so on. Rina, for yourself, tell us a little bit about some of the portfolio that you've been involved in.
So in the past, I was most of my portfolios are in tech, But in recent years, the last 2 years, I think I've shifted to more, I think semi brick and mortar as well, brands. I'm starting to feel that I have a little expertise in helping to build brands instead of building a business, because I think it's a little bit harder to build product than service or brands compared to business. So my latest investment was actually in a sector that everybody thinks I'm crazy. So it was a chocolate company that I invested.
Love 18.
Love 18.
Yeah.
Well, it's tangible. So I tasted the chocolate. I gave it to people. People like it. So that's like a check. But whether this chocolate will be the preferred chocolate, will it make it to at least a regional player? That's,
They're Malaysian as well, right?
Yes.
Right.
Eddie, yes. So why I invest in this guy, or in Eddie, because we had some joint venture in the past. I have invested in his tech company before. So I know this guy is reliable, he's very hardworking, and most importantly, he has grit. And I know if plan A doesn't work, he will pivot, and he's willing to pivot. The challenge would be he's always in tech. He's a tech guy. So the first venture we had was the first group buying platform in Manila. That was 8 years ago. But we had fun. We didn't make a lot of money, but I think the process is important to me. When Eddie said he wanted to do chocolate, it was quite a surprise to me as well. But he said, I'm just telling you, you don't have to invest. I'm not asking for investment. So I'm going to use my own personal money. That's the second check. So you believe in what you do. And he actually traveled to a few places. In fact, I think Japan, Australia, to get inspiration. So one day when I visited him, his house was like full of books about chocolate. So I can feel and smell the passion, right? And then 1.5 years later, he said, I'm ready to talk. Yeah. So I said, how much have you burned? He said, actually not much, because he was doing chocolate in his kitchen and selling it online. I think that's, a good way to test the market. Yeah. So it was just a year ago that he said, okay, I'm ready to take in some investment, and I wanted someone that I've worked with before, and someone who doesn't bug me every day and say, how's your chocolate doing? Of course, someone who loves food. That's so obvious, right? Penang people, right? So I put in, so I'm the first angel investor. Yeah. So
it's a good story. Eddie, I've met Eddie, and he was on the show some months back, and I was really impressed by, obviously, the passionate part about love of chocolate. I mean, it's difficult not to love chocolate as well, but also they risked a lot. It was him and his wife, right?
Yes.
They started that.
Yes.
You talk about that second checkbox, investing my own money.
Yes.
And how important that was, because they've put a lot of skin in the game.
Yes.
They could have been a successful tech company, or I think they came, I don't know the background before that, consultancy or something.
So we started a group buying company, and then we cash out, and then he actually brought in iPay88, which is a online payment platform, to Manila. So he built on iPay88 from scratch. So he's a good operator. Yeah. And then he has got, I think, maybe some small sweat equity. And then after that, he brought in Initi, which is a digital agency, also listed in Malaysia Stock Exchange. And he actually built it for 3 years. I believe he has some equity there. And for some reason, he said, probably I'm too tired about doing tech. He wanted to do something different.
But it's not completely different, is it? I mean, there are a lot of mindset, things that you can bring across to chocolate.
So this is exactly the point. If you ask me, would I invest in a passionate chef that says, Rina, I would like to open a restaurant and da-da-da? I don't think so, because, I was told that restaurant is difficult. But Eddie, because of his background, he's in tech, and then chocolate, I believe, is sort of art. He's able to combine these two. Right. And when he wants to launch something, he can use the technology part, the social media listening. So he can show me why, I want to launch this. Yeah. He can show me the patterns. And he does a lot of good research, telling me that, Indonesia, consumption of chocolate is like $4 billion.
Hmm.
It was crazy. $4 billion. And then he told me Cadbury is almost 200 years old and just selling chocolate.
Yeah.
And chocolate is something you can sell to kids, to adult. It's like water. So I said, that's quite true. So I actually learned a lot. And I was so amazed that you asked him anything about chocolate.
He did a deep dive.
He did a deep dive.
Deep dive, yeah.
And I think that is something very rare nowadays. It's all about hearsay. They take snapshots of reports, but they don't really dissect and understand how it will impact. They just show you, that's $1 billion market, that's $1 trillion market, but the execution plan, step by step, how you're going to compete with the existing brands. So the two obvious brands are Godiva and Royce. They are premium chocolates, but at a very artisanal luxury level as well. So my question to him is, how are you going to compete with these two? Because they put a lot, obviously, in marketing dollar, branding. He just said, well, we do it slowly, we do it sincerely, and with love. So I said, okay.
That's a good start, though. I mean, this is important, isn't it? Because you can build a profitable business without being completely global.
Yes.
If you know your market and know what you're not as well. It's a really interesting story. I mean, you mentioned also something you said, Rina, which I've made a note of. You invested in him.
Yes.
Rather than the business.
Yes.
And I'll come back to that in a minute,
Yes.
because this is a really important point. You've already sort of like built the backstory to that. Stephen, maybe just a heads up on one or two of your portfolio investments. Who would you say, can sort of best describe the kind of investments that you've made?
I think let me start with Sherilyn Tan, Asia Law Network. I think for me, when I want to invest in a startup, I'm really looking for, the very first thing I look for is the team. As Rina say, she invested in Eddie. For me was when Sherilyn and her team came to me, and the two co-founders came to me the first time, it was that spending that 4 hours talking to them and then seeing the chemistry that exists between the team, just watching how they would complete one another's sentences. And they were all different people. Sherilyn came from an accountancy background. There was Gabriel that came from a digital marketing background. And then Pihon was a fighter pilot turned coder.
Oh, interesting.
Self-taught, by the way.
Which?
Yeah.
Coding.
The coding bit. And it was really amazing to see that dynamics going on. But I think more importantly, the passion that they put into what they were doing. They all gave up whatever, paying career that they have, the corporate roles that they have to do this. And then it was very intense. I can see that they really wanted to do something that was different, bring change to one of the oldest profession in the world, to the legal industry. And I'm a lawyer and I've done, I've been in the legal industry for 25 years. My perspective comes from both practicing in a law firm and also working as an in-house counsel. And from what they told me, they were trying to create a brand new marketplace in order to matchmake lawyers and clients, to make it easier, to reduce the friction, to make legal services accessible to everybody. I think Sherilyn's word was to make justice accessible to everyone. That's where she's coming from. And I think that team dynamics, that passion in what they have, and the fact that I had a chance to look at what they were building at the time, it was already working. That attracted me. Plus, I like to also bet on what I call the non-traditional founders. The typical tech founders would be a guy. Most of the time, they'll be white. So I was going for something different. Yeah. And Sherilyn was one of them. I was really impressed that a young lady like her was really hard driving.
And she's got real hustle as well.
Yeah.
I was so impressed.
I met her once.
Yeah. She came in and she came into the studio and she told me about when they built the MVP of their product. she took screenshots, literally just screenshots and mock-ups with a laptop, and they went out and they pitched all the lawyers. It really was just knocking on doors.
Yep.
I mean,
Yes.
that is I mean, anybody should hear that story
Yep.
and say, look, this is what you got to do.
Yes, actually, that how many people or how many potential customers that you have met should be a slide instead of
Yeah.
I've been featured in whatever under 30 media coverage and all this. This doesn't translate to
Yeah.
any valuation
Yes.
to me. I just say skip the slides. It's just too many media slides. But if you tell me I've met 100 potential customers today, and you've been doing this for like months. You've been knocking on doors. That shows a lot more.
Yeah. That's, I mean, as a skill, it's hard to teach, isn't it? But those are the kind of founders you want to bet on
Yeah.
because
Yes,
they
yes.
won't. And everybody talks about not giving up, never give up, and all that sort of thing in the startup world. But let's see how these people actually cope when the SH1T hits the fan.
Yeah.
Right? Let's see how they get
Yeah.
on. Because it's tough, right?
Yeah,
If these
because-
people have got that grit that you talk about, or that, like Sharon
Yep.
and the team, they got that passion and drive,
Yep.
that they're going to keep going.
Yeah.
I think the ultimate combination of skills that I'm always looking for in a founder is, on the one circle is that you got to be geeky, whether it's chocolate or
Yes.
the legal industry or coding or whatever. You really must be prepared to deep dive into whatever the hell they are trying to sell or build. The other circle will be the hustling. Are you street smart enough? Do you have the grit to go out there to knock on 1,000 lawyers' office door and say, please use my product?
And get rejected.
Yes.
999 of them will tell you to go away, this doesn't work.
And keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting characteristic, isn't it? And I guess, this is that sort of X factor we look for in founders. And I guess as investors as well, you become attuned to that and you
Yep.
become aware of those kind of patterns of behaviors and personality types and so on. I was speaking to Vinny Laurier from Golden Gate, was doing an interview with him, and he's the founding partner of Golden Gate Ventures, but on his LinkedIn profile, he lists newspaper boy as one of his experiences, and like when he was like 15,
Yeah.
16.
Yep.
And I was speaking to him about it, and he said, I forgot I put it in there, more or less as entertainment, but the fact is that, he said his mum and dad said, you've got to go out, you've got to work and hustle. Newspaper boy, it's pretty tough, isn't it? Maybe like it's long hours
Yes.
or poor pay and whatever. I know, for example, you've had an interesting background as well, but you were like selling quite early on, weren't
Yes.
you? So
Well, because I didn't have chores, not that I love it, but looking back, I thought it's a good experience. I mean, now I think because at that time I didn't have much choice at such a young age. Then
you were supporting a family, right? So-
yes, anything is an option for me. I should try. Right?
Yeah.
I've been, like, my mom owns a hair salon in our one-bedroom apartment, and I'm a shampoo girl, so I'm a qualified hairdresser as well. Maybe I should list on maybe that hair card. Yeah, I
How
mean,
about
those days, you just do.
Right.
And then,
How old are you?
So about 12, because
Right.
I'm quite tall. So by 12, I could reach. when I was growing, I was just handing, those curlers to my mom and those pins in
Yeah.
those days. Yeah. So
Wow.
I learned.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good. It's something you should be proud of, I think, as well.
Yes.
So,
So if I'm jobless, I can still go back to cutting hair.
there you go. It's always there in the background. All right. You're both people that I've admired for some time, and I think that it's great to have you in this roundtable situation to find a bit about your story. I think as well the challenge here is that trying to, for the angels as well, and all those people in the ecosystem who support startups, trying to help those people understand who you are and what you do, right? Because I think that's really important, that startup founders, they might just see you as a check, and just like, sending you emails and, like, can you have a look at my pitch deck and get back to me? Or,
Yes.
I
I think they think we are an ATM, but I always tell them that my encryption code is more than 6 digits.
all right. Well, law of averages, they'll get there in the end with LinkedIn messages, right? So, okay, so we've had some questions from listeners, and we don't have any listeners yet, but, I said this was going out. So some of the LinkedIn community have been kind to come up with questions that they have to angels. I think most of them are founders. There may be angels asking questions as well. Hopefully in the future they will. So let's just throw these questions out in a quick fire round.
Sure.
You know, whatever comes to your head. What has been the most innovative way a startup grabbed your attention? Let me ask you, has there been an innovative
Yes,
way?
actually, yes. At a wedding held next to a pool.
Right.
That was quite surreal. I was in my swimming trunks.
Oh my!
He was in.
Are you sure?
Let's picture this. This is marvelous.
And he was in his swimming trunks. So
Oh, God.
it was just two of you?
No, and my wife, my co-founder was also there. You know, my CFO and co-founder. So it was quite surreal. It was the three of us. We were just initially I thought we're just shooting the breeze and just talking about the weather, and then it kind of segued into what he was trying to build.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I was really very tempted to just tell him then and say, okay, you got me.
Right.
Where do I sign? You know?
Yeah. Why did that all work apart from the swimming trunks and the swimming pool? What was the sort of input factors that made all that work for you?
I think what caught my attention was we were both guests to a wedding. And even then, he was not shy about pitching me. Even in that kind of environment.
That's the
hustling.
checkpoint of hustling.
That's the hustling.
Anytime, if you wake that guy up in the middle of the night and say, there's an investor, he will pitch in his pajamas.
Yeah. And
Right?
he was ready to go with his pitch.
Yeah.
This was literally an elevator pitch type. It was within 2 minutes. He explained to me what he was trying to do. He didn't obviously have a pitch deck. He was in his trunks. He just got out of the pool. But he was ready to go, and he was able to summarize it in a way that caught our attention. Both my co-founder and I were like, okay, when you get back to your room, send us your deck. We want to have a look at it. Yeah. So I think that was quite an experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many lessons learned there, isn't there? I mean, for founders as well. As well for angels, in the sense that you don't have to necessarily do it in a formal situation.
I wasn't prepared for that. I was having
obviously.
a beer, having my lunch, having a swim, that kind of thing. And then, we just met.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that was a good question and a great answer as well. I don't know how you repeat that, though. So
I will hang out at the pool more often.
Invite him to a pool. There you go. That is
Angels Pools Party,
There
right?
There you go.
on the islands.
Can you pitch in your trunk?
Yeah, exactly. That would be interesting.
You were like that.
No, we can have like bikinis.
All happened here. There you go. So, all right. I'll ask you this one next, then, Rina.
Sure.
Somia TS. I don't know her second name, but she asks, what factors sway yours as an angel investor's decision to invest in a startup even before they have a product or service?
Well, if it is a stranger to me, then obviously the business plan or the framework needs to be communicated. If it is someone that I know, for example, if Stephen or yourself and said, I'm going to start something, would you like to jump on a bandwagon? My answer would be yes. Because no matter whatever you guys do, I think you do it quite right. So like Eddie, when he pitched this chocolate thing and he said, I'm ready to take an investment. I said, okay, I'm in. But we never say, okay, show me your pitch deck first and then because you've probably had a relationship before. So that is why referral or, if it's coming from a co-investors that you work with, like Steven or some of the co-investors that I had, when they say, oh, I have this opportunity to invest, would you like to jump on a bandwagon? I say, sure, because my due diligence is sort of on them.
That's
right?
interesting.
Yes. And if it is in the industry vertical that I like, which is, of course, education, a little bit of healthcare and food, then is, something that probably, to me, if it's, all these are checklists, then it's pretty easy. Yeah.
Is it quite an emotional decision for you? Or is it, to what extent do you make a decision, through gut instinct? Because the reason why I ask is because when I see successful investors and entrepreneurs, they've built up so much experience, they make snap decisions about people in many cases.
Yes.
Sometimes they can't evoke why, but it's just based on lots and lots and lots of patterns that they've seen. That, okay, and it may be a bias as well. That's has a negative and a positive bias, but it works for you. To what extent are you then sort of like diving into the numbers and the spreadsheets
I
and so on?
actually, for new ideas, early stage, the numbers doesn't make sense to me at all. They're probably plugging from the sky. So, if you give me a 5-year projection, I think that's bullshit. If you can give me
5
2
months
years,
is tough, huh?
yes, because next month you will probably have $0, dollar in your bank account. So, I have paid a lot of tuition fees as well. So over the many years, 15 years, I tend to have casual conversation with them. I think besides work or besides the business that they want to build, their social activities, I tend to ask them, how often do you bring your mom out for dinner? How often do you visit them? Stuff like this, because I
Really?
think the core of that person,
That's interesting.
if you...
What are you looking for there? I mean, if somebody says,
I'm
I haven't
looking for
phoned mom for 12 months. Or
someone that's, a human being. Compassion, being just a human being. You can be very rich, but you don't have all these basic things that, human or, as a son, as a daughter, needs to, be responsible of. Then I think it'll be... Probably it's okay for others, but for me, I think that's quite important for me, because that if you can't take care of your parents or someone you love, how are you going to take care of your team? They're just your team members, your employees, right?
Yeah.
So I tend to have a casual conversation with them, try to ask them questions outside of the pitch deck, because they would have prepared all. Yeah. So little words, like I said, through experiences, words that they use. This is my idea. Yeah.
Where's the team?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very insightful.
Yeah,
That was really interesting. Yeah.
So if you ask me, well, is there a format that, there's none? Because it depends on their answer and then how I would react as well. But 15 years ago, I would be like, wow, my God, impressive press, your deck is so impressive. But right now, I think... I try to look for that core, because it doesn't change that much. And that the whole profile of that person, instead of just, I like this part of you. So the whole package is important. How he spent, does he even do charity work? How does he feel about CSR? Does he give back to society? Things like this, I think, is important to me. I'm not sure about other investors, but certainly I'm looking beyond financial. Right? That if he's looking at, education, definitely he can do other things that will probably be a better candidate for unicorn. But for me, because I love education, I think without education, I wouldn't be what I am today. So especially, early childhood education. So it would be like a double check for me. Yeah.
It's values, isn't it?
Yes.
It's really important to
Correct. I think...
This is really insightful, because I think for founders, and I speak for the founders, myself as a founder and the founders I sit with as well, we don't often think to that level of depth. We only ever think about, your potential return, or you're looking for the unicorn, rather than focusing on that sort of human relationship that goes between an angel investor and a startup founder, right? Because ultimately it's a team. They might not be an active team member, but they're an important part of the team, right? And we don't often think in those terms. Like, I'm thinking about trying to impress you with my pitch deck, right? I'm not really thinking necessarily this is the problem about the angel and what they're thinking about, right? And that's what we kind of get out, isn't it? We've got to kind of tell people that angels have things that they invest in and believe in, and they have backgrounds as well, and understand that a bit more. Because, if you had somebody sitting across the table for you, if they'd heard this, they
Many
know,
times.
they know all the things that they need to be saying, right, to get through to you, right?
I think the point is as a angel investor, the angel investment should be a very small part of your portfolio. So when you're looking at when you're talking to a potential angel investor, this is a guy who would have maybe 80%, 90% of his money invested in a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yes.
Real estate, equities in the listed market. And the angel investment really is 10, 20% of his portfolio. There's easier way to make money than angel investment.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Much, much easier way.
Yeah.
And then, so the question is, what motivates the angel to come
Yes.
with
Yeah,
the money?
absolutely.
It's got to be something more. It's got to be value driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, Rina's obviously given us some really interesting insight into herself. For yourself, Stephen, what would that be? You know, there are easier ways. You can stick it in bricks and mortar. You can stick it in commercial real estate. Why angel investment?
Okay, it's going to sound corny that I'm going to say this, but I'm really looking to change the world. And if I can use my money to finance someone that's going to go out there to change the world, I think that's what interests me.
In what way change the world? Because there's so many places you can start, right? So you must have some thesis about where that goes.
So we have two verticals that we invest in. We invest in marketplaces for services. Matchmaking lawyers and clients is one of them. The other investment that we have is called Trainers Vault. It matches personal trainers with clients, same thing. We like these kind of ideas and we like this kind of product because we think there's a lot of friction when it comes to personal, professional services. Whether it's personal services or professional services, in order for us to get to the best one, it's hard. As a consumer of those services, you need to ask your friends. You need referrals. You need lots of work to get to that best one. If there's a marketplace that allows you to have that with transparency, with trust and safety, with trusted reviews, why not? I think that improves the quality of life to the consumer of those services. It also improves the quality of life to the providers of those services. They don't have to waste the money in inefficient marketing programs or whatever they want to do to advertise for their services. They use the platform. So I do believe if we can do that kind of matching in a more efficient way, it makes for a better world. We also invest in payments, which again kind of stems from my belief that we need to have more financial inclusion. Banks are not doing a very good job in making it easier for people to pay and get paid.
Yep.
And if the people who can come along and figure out a cheaper way and a more efficient way to pay, especially across national borders, I like that. And hence my investment in 10X. Yep.
Great. Okay, there's so many questions here. I'm conscious of the time as well. And I also want to ask you about the event coming up. So maybe we can pick one more question. Some of these questions are the same. For example, when you decide to invest in a startup, this is Abhilash Raut. I think I've got his name right. Apologies if I haven't. When you decide to invest in a startup, what factors add up to your final decision? And they list team, solutions, sales, and so on. Maybe to make this easier, what would be at the top if you were to create a playbook for your investments? In those factors, if you list, we've talked about, for example, like values and the founder and so on. What else is there at the top that you want to see?
So I think we talked about team. Right? Technology is important. We want to look at the platform. We want to see what you're building. Are you really building something?
Correct. This is just a Me Too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many.
You wouldn't invest in a Me Too?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, when you do a Me Too, you invest in a Me Too, you're really looking for a quick exit.
Yeah.
And that goes against my whole idea of trying to build something that changed the world.
Yes.
And then the last bit is, even at such an early stage, we look for traction, at least some usage.
Yes.
And then based on those usage, we want to see what your users are saying about your technology. I think for me, those are the 3 T's that we look on the data side, the fact side.
Yep.
And then the other bit of it is the soft side.
Yes.
Do we click with the guy?
Is it going to be a potential headache for me?
Right.
Would you ever invest in a startup, had an amazing team, technology, traction, but you didn't like the founder?
I think liking someone is quite subjective.
Yeah. I'm asking,
Right? Yes.
for you, if you really didn't like that person, would you invest in
Would
them?
you put money in? No.
Never.
No.
Never.
No.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Okay, so interesting. Okay. All right. Want to talk about the event coming up, but before we do, and really to help, I guess, on the education side with the angels, like and the startups, is that how do they best approach you? Obviously, swimming trunks and pool is a
It's
great...
fine.
It works
It's
in
fine.
some cases. But for those who don't have access to those resources, and Stephen's time and Rina's time, for example, tell me what works. I mean, maybe we can preface that by talking about what doesn't work, because you must be bombarded with messages all the time. You know, doing this as well, I'm sorry, it's only going to get more, but hopefully we can kind of like just tune out the noise a little bit more and help educate people, because there's some of those who just maybe need a bit of training, right, and they could do it better. What doesn't work? Is it, you know, for example, like the email message and saying, here's my pitch deck, take a look. Okay, we've established that. What else doesn't work with you in terms of pitching or like the cold approach or whatever?
I guess if emails is fine, I try to reply, you know, as many of those LinkedIn email, because, you know, to us is junk. It's not junk, but it is sort of like spam box. But to that founder, you know, is his hope. And I actually feel bad, you know, sort of crushing someone's hope. It's like the pitch competition. Some actually walk away because maybe that's not his day, but I tend to go back and say, hey, actually your pitch is not that bad, but, you know, these are the few things that you potentially can refine, and then you can try later. Because to them, it's like maybe there's everything, right? But to us as investors or judges, it's like, you know, things you see every day. So, but if someone writes you an email, you know, since we have got a bit of experience, you can feel whether it's a templated, whether they did a bit of research about you, and it's actually written from the heart, sincere, the words. And I think that makes it, if it is a cold email like that, that few sentences, you've actually checked me out, you know, what are my portfolios, what I like, you know I invest in schools, so this is my new platform that could potentially be useful to your schools. That is, I think, you know, chances of getting a reply will be so much higher. But I think as much as investors get to do due diligence on who they want to invest in, I think the founders or the team, they should actually, you know, spend some time, try to profile that angel investor or the person that you so wanted to bring on your team, and who are, you know, her or his circle. That I think quick, you know, email blast certainly doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
And, you know, I would appreciate if they don't mistaken me or Stephen being a girl, me being a guy, and some
They
different
obviously have a
names.
single
No,
phone.
Rina, but then someone's name or the company's right. That sort of like, okay, you're not really serious about it. And on a deck today, don't ask the guy or the girl, can you let me know if you're investing?
Yeah.
I'm not a robot.
ATM.
Yes. It's like, and then, you know, it's like, when can you get back to me?
Yeah.
I guess, you know, the tone, and if you rush me, I'm like, okay, I'm not sitting around every day just to look at DAX.
Yeah. You have a life outside of this.
Yes.
Right? It's good. I mean, it's a great point. I mean, for us to appreciate that angel investors are human beings as well,
Yes.
right? Not ATMs,
Yes,
right?
correct.
And you're going to get so much farther if you treat them with respect as well.
Yeah.
You know, not just undue reverence. They're human beings who want to work with you, right? But
I think your point about treating us with respect, the respect that we want really is very simple. Come prepared.
yeah.
Come prepared. You actually know who I am, what I invest in, what I don't invest in. You know my background, you know my profile, because I will go prepared to the demo night or the pitch night or whatever networking event. So coming back to the guy in the swimming trunk, he came prepared.
Yeah.
So we actually have a mutual friend in the groom. The groom prepped him that I was coming to the wedding. So he knew I invested in the groom. So the groom actually told him, look, this is my investor. By the way, he's sitting at the pool now, you know, with his wife. Maybe you should just go corner him. So he knew, he did his trolling, you know, on social media, on LinkedIn. He knew exactly what I was. So it was only after we had a pleasant conversation, you know, he went off and I ran into the groom and said, hey, look, I met this guy called Andy, by the pool, and it's a cool idea. I said, I told him he should go talk to you about it. He came prepared. So I think that was important.
But that means he's not going to waste your time.
He wasn't.
And that says a lot in business, right?
Yes.
He's not also going to waste your money, hopefully, right? That all goes part and parcel of the same. The character as well of that person.
The other thing that I think works for me is like some of them are at early stage and they're not saying, can you invest in me? But they say, oh, I have some questions and if I would appreciate if I can run it through you, can you be my virtual mentor? I won't bug you for, a lot, but there's some, sometimes you come at a crossroad. I just needed some advice. And through that relationship, being a mentor first, I think the chances of me investing is so much higher. Right?
Yes.
Because it started with something that I just need, to reach out to you. And, hopefully we can learn from each other. And instead of just, can you invest in me? I mean, the answer is, of course, no. Right?
It's interesting. I mean, do you do that as well? I mean, do you have sort of, situations where startups come to you, founders come to you and say, look, I need your advice. Can we chat? And not directly pitch you.
Yes.
And then, that then develops into a relationship and then you invest in them at a later
Yes.
stage. So
And because they'll say, can I send you my teaser? I say, sure. So when I have time, I'll look at it. Even some of it, I said, okay, there's a grammar mistake. I think you should change this. I mean, these are the things that I think most angels don't mind doing. But, it doesn't come as that forceful. But in the process, I get to learn about you. I get to learn about, and I see, those suggestions that I've made. It may not be the brightest answer, but you are coachable. That's one thing very important for early stage startup, whether the person is coachable.
they'll listen.
Yes, because
Even if they may disagree, but they can listen to
correct.
your
So we rationally
implement.
Yes, we're not perfect as well because there's so many new technologies and things out there. So I see it as sometimes I have to unlearn the things I've learned so that I can absorb more.
Absolutely, this is really good advice. So rolling up to March the 20th will be our first PitchDeck Connect event. We're bringing together angels such as our esteemed company here and startups, so qualified startups who've been on the show and who've done the pitch already, so you can go and see the pitch. Hopefully we've reduced the noise down to focus a bit more on quality, which is the challenge I think that's coming out of this, isn't it? It's time wasting and it's lack of quality and there's so much noise out there. How do you focus on those people, the right founders, the people who are not going to waste time, the right angels as well who are not going to waste time? So bring those people together. What do you want to get out of this? Sitting with startups, what would you like to see come through the door and talk to you? What kind of conversations do you want to have? Do you want people to come and sit with you at a table and say, hey, Stephen, I heard about you. Here's my pitch. I'm not wearing swimming trunks, but this might work. There's a bar here. Or, would it be, let's have a conversation? Or, do you mind if I talk a little bit about my pitch deck? What is the best sort of conversation that they can have in that context with you?
I think in this coming event, it's different from a lot of the events that I've attended in that we now have a whole archive of videos and podcasts that we can check out. So I would have an opportunity to actually sieve out which are the startups that are coming that would fit into my investment mandate, in my investment hypothesis. And that's really at the end of the day what I'm looking for, to save myself some time, to meet random people just to hear them out for 3 minutes and tell them no. I think that's wasting my time, wasting that person's time. I would rather have that very focused conversation. So I could zero in on a couple of them right away and say, hey, I've already seen you on PitchDeck. I saw your video. I read your pitch deck. I've got these few questions. I think that's what I'm hoping to do as far as the founders are concerned. On the angel side, I'm hoping to meet fellow angels, learn new things, learn new investment theses that they may have, and also hopefully to find co-investors.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that as well, because often these events are seen as like one-way
No.
pitches, aren't they?
Shouldn't
They're often
be.
like,
Yeah.
they're going to come, they're going to pitch you, and you're going to sit there
No.
and watch, and then you're going to make your notes and then walk
Yeah,
off.
it's
And
like a beauty pageant.
yeah,
Like,
like,
no.
you know, out of 20, 19 lose, one person, you know, gets the prize and
Yeah.
so on. That's how it has been for many years. We want to change that, right?
Yes.
So for everybody else that's coming and having that sort of focused conversation, angels as well, what should they know? How should they be prepared? In the sense, not just for the founders, but talking to other angels as well. So is there, I mean, are you looking for co-investors? I mean, and Stephen, you said
Yep.
you are.
Yes.
And if you are, what would be the kind of co-investors you want to work with? Do they come with a specific vertical expertise or what?
I guess vertical expertise is not, the top of my concern. Is, I think whether I can click with the potential co-investors, just like, it's a teamwork between the angel investors or between the investors and the angel investors and the founders as well. So I think the first sort of impression and the first few conversations, like for example, we considered ourselves a little bit, angels with a little bit more experience because likely we have lost some money.
Yeah,
We have a couple of startups blew up.
Yeah, so almost.
you've earned your wings.
So if there is a new angel investors that wants to come on board and to sort of learn from the tuition fees that we're paid, we would love to share the experience, because I think as founders need to have mentors. I think angel investors probably feel first-time angel investors probably feel a little bit more at ease if they can be a co-investors with someone that has a little bit more experience than the five of us are new and then let's try to do something together. So a lead investor that has a little bit more experience, I think, sort of put the first timers a little bit at ease. But I think in Asia, the effort of educating people to be angel investors are still, there's a lot of work to be done. I just came back from the World Business Angel Forum in Turkey, and I was surprised that just in Turkey and just the surrounding countries, Eastern European countries, the angel investments are so active, whether it's private or even, from the government itself. So around the table, they're like represented by 53 countries. So Malaysia is represented the first time. Just among us in the room, round table, in 15 minutes, we raised about €500,000 to invest. So 20,000 each, just to comment. But here in Asia, I must say that there's still a lot of work to be done. Like one of the things that I thought of was like, we have CEOs. What if we could transition them, some of them, to be investors. Like Steven said, angel investors, you should go to those that has already, their safe piggy bank in, listed stocks and all this. And then a small portion of 10-20% that they can, if I lose it, it's okay. It's not going to, affect my lifestyle, right? So I think that profile, and then the do's and don'ts of being an angel investor. So in developing countries, because founders, Singapore is very fortunate, Malaysia is not too bad, but in developing countries, founders don't have access to funding, whether it's government or private. And there are, of course, angels who has the two little horns and say, there's 50,000, but I want 50% of your company or more, the sharks, right? And that is really bad because that would actually kill their company, because the next investors were like, I would definitely not touch this company.
Yeah.
But if I'm evil enough, I'll say, hey, you actually got taken for a ride. Why don't we just let it die, close it, and you can take your idea. I'll still give you 50,000, but I only take 10%.
Yeah, I think these situations, the problem is that
it's real.
It encourages angels to behave like that, because that's the role model, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, I've got to be like this guy who's, with his wad of cash on the table. I'm in, I'm out. But if that's what is set as an example, the next generation of angel coming through will be like that too, right? So kind of what we want to do, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, there are demons among us too, you know.
Right, yeah. Really?
We were
I
in
thought
this,
you were all angels.
well, I guess in a situation like this, right? If you get 50,000 for 50% of the company, and you know, between the first raise and the second raise, it wasn't too far apart. How much are you going to value the company? And
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't make sense for a founder at this early stage to be diluted so much. At the end, the founder is the one who say, you know, to hell with it. I'm not going to,
Yeah.
you know, sacrifice my life, everything for just, by the time it's like, what,
Nothing.
less
Yeah.
than few percent. So we need to keep the founders and the team motivated as well. I mean, taking a chunk of, you know, someone's sweat at this price, I just don't think it's
Just
right.
greed, isn't it? It doesn't work at the end
Yes,
of it.
yes. People, you know, feel it
Yeah.
sooner or later.
Yeah. We had the conversation off tape before when we were talking, I think when we had our first coffee a couple of weeks back, and we were talking about the problem with like the Shark Tank model and so on. And as much as that's great entertainment, which is cool. I mean, it's TV. It's there for entertainment. It's not how it really happens or not how it should happen. You made a really interesting point, Rina, which I think you said more as an offhand comment, but I think was quite profound. You said, I'm not a shark, I'm a dolphin. And I was thinking about it. And on the way back, I was thinking, shark, not a dolphin, shark, not a dolphin. And I think there was some truth in that because, I mean, you know, if you were stranded out at sea, as many you know, founders can find themselves, the last thing you want to see on the horizon is a shark. You want to see a dolphin. A dolphin's going to help you. It might even like guide you home, right?
Yes,
you know,
yes.
they're quite benevolent creatures. I mean, they
Yes.
can be quite vicious as well. So
Yes.
don't mess with them. But I thought it was quite interesting because, you know, there's a lot of ego in this industry as well, isn't there? And to be positioning yourself, say, hey, look, yeah, I'm here to help effectively. I want to help. You know, I see this as a team effort. I might not be really hands-on, but, you know, my resources and my contacts can really help here. Not as, you know, I'm going to try and screw this startup founder for everything I can get, see what I can get out of it and get a great deal. I don't think every startup founder or even angel knows that that's how it should be. And that's kind of what we want to change a little bit, isn't it?
I think, you know, how you behave, you know, sort of, if you behave like this, then expect the other person to reciprocate, right? So I think the do's and don'ts and the basic guideline of being an angel investor, I think it's easy to claim if I invest in a company, even through Kickstarter or crowdfunding, 5,000, 10,000 or even less, I'm an investor. But, you know, I think the word is quite broadly and loosely used.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this has been a great conversation. And it's not easy to get you guys to talk, you know that on... You're not...
You can go to our Angel's Island
Angel Island.
in the making.
Rina, that is,
Property price will go up then.
we're in stealth mode, remember?
Stealth mode, okay.
All right.
That's a teaser.
We'll edit that out. So yeah, the angel. Oh no, not the Angel Islands, but getting you guys to talk because you know that's another thing about angel investors. You tend to work in the background as well, but you know you have really interesting ideas and you have a lot of experience between you. So you know, trying to unlock that a little bit as well has been great. And thank you for being so honest and open and direct in your thoughts today. Rina Neoh and Stephen Liew, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Real
you.
pleasure. Enjoyed. This
fun.
is our first recorded conversation. We had a lot of conversations, but not actually one on tape. And we'll do this hopefully with every event that we're going to do. You know, either here in Singapore or when we take it around Asia, we will capture the conversations with angel investors, and you know, get their ideas as well. And that part of that educating both the founder and the angel community, how important that is, and you know, that sort of angel to angel education, I think, is the missing link here
Yes,
as well.
it is.
If you are attending the event on March the 20th, then you've listened to this. Hopefully, you will have had great advice. You know, you won't hear any better advice than directly from the horses' mouths. And also, you know, if you are an angel investor, then please reach out because, like they said, they're interested in co-investors and onboarding new investors or people who may bring in certain assets or experiences that they don't have access to. We'd love to hear from you. This is Graham Brown. This has been PitchDeck Angels. I get that right. PitchDeck Asia, PitchDeck Angels.
Angels.
There we go. Signing out. We'll see you all on March the 20th. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.